What is up, guys? We're back with another video, and today we're checking out this case right here. This is Lian Li's O11 Dynamic Mini V2 Flow. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now, just to start things out, I am a daily user of an O11 Dynamic Mini. When it first came out in 2020, I saw it and I was like, I need to do a build in here. And I did, with the matching fans and everything like that. I was one of those people who did the O11 Dynamic Mini build, and I absolutely love it. But there are definitely some things that need to be improved. And again, the case came out in 2020. It's now 2025. So there are some things that Lian Li could definitely do to the case to improve it, and hopefully we see those here in the V2. As far as different versions of the case, first off, you're going to be able to get the case, at least initially, in both a white and black version. Now we have the Flow version, and the Flow version is going to come with 5 included fans, 3 on the bottom, 2 in the side mounts, and those are already pre-wired, but there is no fan controller. And then the normal version of the case will just have no fans at all. So that allows you to go ahead and choose the fans that you want, whether they're Lian Li fans or some other brand. It gives you the ability to kind of choose the cooling that you want. For the size of the case, Lian Li has made things a bit larger. I'll go ahead and put up on the screen the specs of the original and the specs of the new V2. The biggest change you're going to see is actually in the height of the case itself. This is actually to better accommodate cooling in the top part of the case here. On my original, I actually had to get a 3D printed offset plate because I installed a 360 millimeter AIO in the top here. And if I didn't have the offset plate, it would interfere with my memory. So you won't have that issue on this newer version of the case. Starting at the front of the case, we have a tempered glass panel. This is gonna give you a straight look into your system. The panel itself is angled to match the new style of the case, which we'll get into. The IO of the case has been moved to the bottom. It was on the top previously, which I feel is a better placement. The IO is made up of a power button, USB 3.2 Type-C ports, 2 USB 3.0 Type-A ports, and a combination headphone and microphone jack. One thing that's nice about both the front panel and the side panel of the case is that you can fully remove them without having to remove the top panel of the case. On the original, you had to remove the top panel. Now you don't have to do that. So for the front here, you just kind of edge it out a little bit, and then you can pull it up from the bottom and it will easily come off. And then when you want to go ahead and put it back in, there's these 2 grooves that you see right here. Those line up with the front of the case. And you just have to be very careful and kind of just slide it in, and it will lock right back into place. Now we're at the top of the case here, and as you can see, we sort of have a split panel design with about 90% of this panel being taken up by this cooling section, and then we have a little bit like 10% over here. Now there is this little cutout right here. This is if you wanted to, move those front connections and your power button from the front of the case all the way up to the top. You can definitely go ahead and do that. Now, this cooling section, the panel can easily be removed. So you have 2 captive thumb screws, loosen those, and then just pull back on the panel, and you can easily remove it here. Now we have this cooling bracket. This top cooling bracket will support 3 120 millimeter fans or 2 140 millimeter fans, as well as radiators up to 360 millimeters. This cooling bracket is fully removable from the case as well. The main side panel of the case, of course, is a tempered glass panel, and this is going to give you a perfect view into your system. One thing you might notice compared to the original is that we don't have that border, so you have unobstructed views into your system. Removing the side panel of the case is really easy, and just like the front of the case, you can go ahead and remove it without having to remove the top panel of the case. It's held into place or secured with a thumb screw, so you just loosen that, and then there's a little tab here you just pull out, and it's going to go ahead and release. And you can kind of have it sit here just like this, and again, you just want to be very careful and just pull up just like that, and it's fully removed. And then just like the front of the case, we have the tabs there, so you just line those up with the side of the case here, and again, it's just going to go right back on, and then you just tighten the thumb screw and you're good to go. The opposite side panel is going to be a normal steel panel. We have our side mount ventilation right here, as well as ventilation where your power supply is going to be mounted. Now, the interesting thing about this case is that we now have full ATX power supply support up to 200 millimeters. The way that they were able to accomplish that is that this section right here, this ventilated section, is popped out from the case just ever so slightly to make room for ATX power supplies. Removing the opposite side panel of the case is really easy. So no thumb screw here, there's just a little groove. And if you pull on that groove, the panel will release. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this panel will totally fall. So you don't wanna, think it's gonna be held on. It's gonna totally fall off. So just grab a hold of it and pull it away from the case. And then putting it back on, we have grooves here and you just line those up. And those grooves are actually in the feet of the case. So just line those up and push the panel right back on. Moving around to the back of the case, we get a better idea of the dual compartment design of the case. On one side, we have our motherboard mount with 5 expansion slots. On the motherboard mount towards the bottom, there's a plastic cap where the I/O would be. This can actually be moved to the top of the case if you needed more room up top. The 5 expansion slots on the case is pretty interesting, especially for a case that does support ATX motherboards, because on most cases that support ATX motherboards, we see 7 expansion slots. So that means that you're going to completely lose the functionality of your bottommost PCI Express slot. It is going to be blocked as well, which I will get into. There's also a fan mount on this side of the case, and it will support 120 millimeter fans. It does have the slit design, so you have the ability to move your fan up and down depending on your configuration. The opposite side of the case houses your power supply in a vertical orientation, and like I said, we do have full ATX power supply support. As we move towards the bottom of the case, there is an opening that allows better airflow to the bottom cooling bracket. Also down here, you'll find a pull-out filter that goes across the entire length of the case. So I wanted to interrupt this video and let you guys know that we're giving away a $100 gift card of your choice. So pretty much anywhere, wherever I can buy you a gift card, I'm gonna buy you a $100 gift card. It could be Amazon, Steam, Xbox, iTunes, whatever it is. We're doing that for the holiday. Check the link in the description. That's where you can go ahead and enter the contest. And when you enter, it's gonna ask you for a special code. So for you guys on YouTube, the code is YT Holiday 100, all in caps. Just put that in, that gets you 2 extra entries into the contest. So good luck, and let's get back to the video. Now that we're inside of the case, we can see that this side of the case will house our motherboard, graphics card, and CPU cooler. As far as motherboard support goes, you're gonna be able to support ATX, micro ATX, and mini ITX. For graphics cards, you can go up to 400 millimeters, and for CPU coolers, the max cutoff is going to be 160 millimeters. Since we have the flow version of the case, we have those 5 included fans. So we have 3 120 millimeter reverse blade fans mounted in the bottom of the case. And you can see this mount is set at an angle that's of course for better airflow, but it will completely block your bottommost PCI Express slot on your motherboard. So definitely keep that in mind. You also want to keep in mind that once you mount your fans to this bottom mount, it's going to be hard to connect all of the bottom connections on your motherboard. So just keep that in mind as you're doing your installation. Now, this bottom mount is fully removable from the case to make it really easy to go ahead and install your fans. And then in the side mount, we have 2 more 120 millimeter reverse blade fans. This side mount will only support 2 120 millimeter fans. And one thing compared to the original that Lian has done here is that we have sort of covers on the top and bottom of that side mount. One that's better gonna direct airflow, so you have just better airflow coming into that side mount, or it's more directed. On top of that, you don't have like these big open holes that you can kind of see through. So I definitely like that addition. There's also a built-in GPU support bracket here, so you can move it both back and forward and up and down to accommodate whichever graphics card you decide to install. With the opposite side panel removed, we can see that this side of the case looks very much like the original. The first thing we see is the storage mount with the Lian logo in the center. This will support 2 2.5-inch drives and can be fully removed from the case for easy installation. As we take a look at our power supply back here, we can see, of course, it's mounted vertically, and we can see that bracket that makes it possible to have full ATX power supply support. So it sticks out slightly from the back of that case, and just like I showed you, this is all made possible by that little bump out in the rear panel. As we move to the bottom of the case, you will find the storage trays or cages, whatever you want to call them. I feel they're a little bit over-engineered. Let me show you. So they're held into place by the thumb screws on the back of the case here. So if we go ahead and remove these, go ahead and do that really quickly. Then we have the screws, and we kind of just lift this up and pull these out. It just kind of pop out just like that. So with this removed, you could go ahead and install your drives, and there's sort of like this door that opens up just like that, and we get access to the inside. This does support both 2.5-inch and 3.5-inch hard drives. When you're done, you would close the door down and then put this back. Like I said, it just seems over-engineered and just like a lot of work to get your drives installed. Like a simpler drive cage design would have just made things a lot easier in my opinion, but this is kind of how they've done it. They also suggest if you're not making use of these, you could put the door sort of all the way down. See how it's, you know, not covering a whole lot of area here, and you could route your cables in there and kind of crimp them down. There are cable routing ties in there, so I wouldn't really suggest using these. In my build, I actually completely removed these. I only have them in there just to show you guys, but I would just remove these if you don't plan on using them. There's plenty of Velcro straps on the back side of the case as well, which make it really easy to tie down and organize your cables. So one last thing that is worth mentioning here is that we are on the bottom of the case. We can of course see our bottom mounted fans, but Lian has installed this massive sort of cable routing hole. And this makes it incredibly easy to route your PCI Express or your graphics card power cables from your graphics card over that elevated cooling mounts and back into the back side of the case. This just makes it so easy, and I'm really glad that they've installed this because it would have been really, really hard when you do your installation and you get to your graphics card and then you're like, oh crap, I have to route this large cable. This makes it so much easier. When it comes to testing, we're going to be testing both temperatures and noise levels. So here's a full breakdown of our test system. So as I said at the beginning of this review, the original O11 Dynamic Mini came out in 2020, so it's been quite a while, and as a daily user of that case, there are a lot of things that needed to be changed or just improved overall. It's still a great case, but things definitely needed to be improved. I think the biggest thing was airflow. That case was essentially starved for air. I run, 6, 7, 8 fans in mine with my AIO and everything, and it still gets quite hot, especially when I'm gaming. So adding the angled bracket at the bottom with a sort of cutout in the bottom of the case to better direct that airflow is definitely going to be good. Of course, we have the same type of side mount cooling, but they put the little covers on there which help better direct that airflow. So I definitely like that. And then making the case a little bit taller to better accommodate cooling in the top of the case. Like I said, in my original, I had to get a offset bracket 3D printed to even install a 360 millimeter radiator in the top of the case with an ATX motherboard. So now I don't have to do that in that case. These included fans too with the Flow version. You get 5 and they are incredibly quiet. Like they're super, super quiet. So I really like that as well. You don't get a fan controller with the Flow version. And I would have really liked to have seen like different versions of this case, even if they would have been, you know, a little bit more expensive with Lian Li's uni fans and the fans with the LCDs in them. I would have just like a complete package, maybe save the end user like 10, 15 bucks off of buying everything separately. I would have really liked to see that with this case. And of course we have support for all of the latest hardware. So, you know, motherboards up to ATX, full-size graphics cards up to 400 millimeters, and we now get ATX power supply support, so you don't have to go out and try to find an SFX or SFXL power supply, so I definitely like that as well. I think the biggest downside for a select group of users is going to be that you only have 5 expansion slots, so if you're somebody who does use an expansion card on your motherboard, it's going to be completely blocked and you won't be able to use it. Also, it is, again, worth mentioning one more time that when you are doing your installation, you want to make sure you connect all of your bottom connections and headers on your motherboard, because they're going to be really hard to access once you get everything installed. I think that is kind of the downside, but overall, I think this is a very nice improvement over the original. They addressed the little bit of issues that they had, and they just made an overall better case with better airflow, better aesthetics, in my opinion, as well. Now, as far as pricing goes, Lian Li has priced this quite well. So the V2 without any fans, just the normal case, is going to be $89.99, and then the Flow version with 5 included fans is only $99.99. So pretty good pricing there as well. So if you have any questions about this case, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up. We'll see you guys in the next video.